The 7 brutal tests avoidants put you through before they'll ever love you. You've met someone. The chemistry, electric. The conversation's deep, but something's off. Every time you lean in, they lane out. Every time you open up, they shut down. You're not crazy, you're dealing with an avoidant. Now here's the truth, avoidant people test you. Not consciously, it's not some twisted game. It's a self-protective strategy born from fear. Fear of intimacy, fear of dependence, fear of being hurt. Unless you see those tests for what they are, you'll spend months, maybe years, trying to prove you're safe enough to love. But here's the brutal truth. No matter how loving you are, some people will never be ready. So let's break down 7 tests avoidants unconsciously put you through and how to protect your heart without losing your mind. Test 1. The push-pull game. They show interest, then vanish. You think things are going great, and suddenly they're distant. It's a test to see if you'll chase. But remember, consistency is sexy. Chaos is not love. Don't reward mixed signals with more effort. Test 2, emotional unavailability. They talk about everything but their feelings. They may open up once, then lock it down for weeks. This isn't about needing time. It's about testing whether you'll settle for crumbs instead of connection. Test 3, hyper-independence. They pride themselves on not needing anyone. You feel like a guest in their life, not a partner. They want you close, but not too close. The test here. Will you accept being held at arm's length? Test 4, sabotage through silence. They disappear after a great date. They don't follow up after opening up. It's a test to see if you'll interpret their silence as a challenge. Spoiler, healthy people communicate. They don't ghost intimacy. Test 5, withholding commitment. They keep things vague. Let's see where this goes. I'm not ready for labels. This is a test to see if you'll lower your standards to stay in the game. Don't. Test 6, triggering jealousy. They casually mention other people, exes, flirty text to provoke a reaction. It's a power play, testing whether you'll compete for their attention. You're not here to audition for affection. Test 7, making you earn their love. Everything feels conditional. You walk on eggshells. You're proving, pleasing, performing, trying to be good enough to unlock their heart. But real love doesn't demand you become someone else to deserve it. Here's the deal, avoidants don't need fixing. And it's not your job to pass their tests. You don't earn love by enduring confusion. You deserve a connection where love is mutual, effort is shared, and safety isn't something you beg for, it's built together. Don't fall in love with potential, fall in love with reality. And if the reality is one-sided, confusing and painful, have the courage to walk dot. When you're involved with an avoidant partner, one of the most disorienting patterns you'll encounter is how they test connection, not by getting closer, but by pulling away. While most people build intimacy through shared vulnerability, avoidants often do the opposite. Their way of testing the relationship is by distancing themselves emotionally or physically in how you react. To someone looking for real connection, this can feel confusing and even painful. You're left wondering, did I do something wrong? Why did things suddenly shift? But this withdrawal isn't necessarily about you. It's about how they protect themselves from perceived emotional danger. Avoidants fear losing their independence or being engulfed by someone else's needs. Intimacy to them is risky territory. So when they start to feel close, rather than leaning into the bond, they pull back to reassert control and safety. This often creates a push-pull dynamic. They're affectionate and engaging one moment and distant or cold the next. It's not a game they're consciously playing. It's a survival instinct. The avoidant pattern says, if I step back and they still stay, maybe I'm safe. Maybe I'm not going to be smothered, abandoned, or overwhelmed. What makes this so brutal is that for someone who is more secure or anxiously attached, this withdrawal often triggers a need to chase, to prove worth, to seek reassurance. You might find yourself overcompensating, texting more, accommodating more, becoming the emotional anchor for both of you. But this only reinforces the avoidant's belief that closeness means pressure. The more you pursue, the more they pull away. And this cycle becomes a test, not of your compatibility, but of how much discomfort you're willing to endure just to stay connected. It's easy to mistake this distance for emotional depth. You think they must feel something real if they're scared, but fear isn't love. Avoidants may feel intensity, even longing, but they struggle to sustain emotional openness. Instead of drawing closer, they regulate their anxiety by creating space, and watching how you respond becomes a subconscious metric for whether or not they can safely stay in the relationship. The irony is that if you respond with healthy boundaries by not chasing, by stepping back, you're actually showing them what secure attachment looks like. But they might not be ready to meet you there, and unless they're actively working on their patterns, the tests never stop. They simply evolve. Recognizing this pattern is essential for protecting your own emotional well-being. You can't build a future with someone who keeps pulling away to test whether you'll follow. Connection should be mutual and built on vulnerability, not tested through withdrawal. Love isn't proven through pursuit, it's proven through presence. The more you contort yourself to pass someone else's emotional exams, the more you abandon your own needs. The question isn't whether you're good enough to stay, it's whether they're willing to show up without disappearing every time things start to get real. Chasing mixed signals is one of the most emotionally exhausting things you can do in a relationship. When you're dealing with someone avoidant, the inconsistency in their behavior starts to feel normal. One day they're warm, affectionate, even vulnerable. The next they're cold, distant, or entirely unreachable. This back and forth creates a kind of emotional roller coaster that keeps you hooked, not because it's healthy, but because your brain starts to crave the highs that come after the lows. You start to think, if I just do this right, if I just say the right thing, they'll come back around. But this kind of chasing isn't about connection. It's about survival in a space where love has become conditional. The mixed signals from avoidance act like bait. They're not intentionally manipulating you, but they are trying to maintain control over their emotional space. They want closeness, but only on their terms. When they feel overwhelmed, they retreat. When they fear losing you, they come closer again. This inconsistency isn't passion, it's fear management. And when you respond by doubling down, reaching out, or trying harder to win their attention, you're inadvertently reinforcing the cycle. You're teaching them that their detachment works, that they can pull away and you'll come running. The worst part is that many people confuse this with deep emotional chemistry. You begin to associate unpredictability with intensity. The emotional hunger caused by their silence makes the smallest gesture from them feel like a feast. You celebrate breadcrumbs because you've been starved of real nourishment. And this sets a dangerous precedent. It teaches your nervous system that inconsistency is what love feels like. But real love isn't inconsistent. Real love shows up, it's reliable. It doesn't make you guess or beg for attention. When you chase mixed signals, you're not moving toward a secure relationship, you're just reacting to someone else's fear. You're trying to close the gap, to fix what you didn't break. But the more you try to earn their consistency, the less power you have. You're constantly reacting instead of choosing. You start to believe that if you can just prove yourself, they'll stop pulling away. But you're trying to negotiate with someone's trauma, and love doesn't work that way. You can't heal someone else's wounds by staying in pain yourself. What you reinforce is what you receive. If you reward emotional distance with closeness, if you meet their silence with over-explanation, you're telling them that they don't have to change, that you'll do all the emotional labor. And soon you find yourself in a relationship that revolves entirely around trying to get back to the good moments, instead of building a consistent emotional foundation. Mixed signals are not a mystery to be solved, they're a boundary to be respected. If someone can't offer consistency, clarity, and communication, then their behavior isn't something to chase. It's something to step away from. Because the longer you stay, the more you teach yourself that love has to hurt to be real. And it doesn't. When someone wears their hyper-independence like a badge of honor, it can be easy to confuse it with strength. They might say things like, I don't need anyone, or I'm just not good at relationships. And at first it might seem like they're just highly self-sufficient. But if you're trying to build something real, something emotionally intimate, hyper-independence becomes a wall, not a foundation. Avoidant individuals often use hyper-independence as a shield. It's not about being capable, it's about avoiding vulnerability. When someone has learned to equate closeness with danger, maintaining distance becomes their way of feeling safe. In relationships, this shows up in subtle and not so subtle ways. They might avoid labeling the relationship. They keep you at arm's length emotionally. You rarely feel included in their deeper world, even if you're physically close. They may avoid making plans too far in the future or resist integrating their life with yours in meaningful ways. It's not that they don't care. It's that letting someone in fully threatens their sense of control. They believe consciously or unconsciously that depending on someone means losing their freedom, their identity, or even their emotional safety. The painful irony is that you often feel more like a guest in their life than a partner. You find yourself tiptoeing around their space, their time, their needs. Your presence in their life is conditional. You can be close, but not too close. You can care, but not expect too much. The message you end up receiving is, I'll let you in, but only on my terms. That conditional openness creates emotional exhaustion. You keep trying to earn more space in their life, more access to their heart, but it never feels fully available. This kind of dynamic teaches you to settle for less than full partnership. You start to adapt, convincing yourself that being independent is a good thing, even if it means suppressing your own need for connection. You tell yourself it's okay not to talk about feelings or to avoid deeper conversations or to accept surface-level intimacy because you're afraid that asking for more will push them away. And that's exactly the trap. Hyper-independence in a partner often forces you into emotional self-abandonment. The truth is, intimacy requires interdependence, not dependence, and not independence taken to the extreme. Healthy relationships are built on a mutual willingness to lean in, to share burdens, to show up vulnerably. When one person refuses to do that, the other ends up carrying the weight of the connection. You become the emotional glue trying to hold together something that was never fully offered to begin with. Someone who insists on doing everything alone is not just being strong, they're avoiding the risk of being seen, known, and potentially hurt. But in doing so, they're also avoiding the depth and safety that true partnership offers. If they can't let you close, can't make space for your emotional needs, and can't meet you in vulnerability, you have to ask yourself a hard question. Are you building a relationship or just orbiting someone else's solitude? When you're in a relationship with someone avoidant, it's easy to fall into the belief that if you can just love them hard enough, stay patient long enough, or be understanding enough, you'll finally reach the part of them that's ready to love you back. This belief can feel noble, even romantic, like you're the one person who can help them change. But that mindset puts the entire emotional responsibility of the relationship on your shoulders. It places their healing in your hands and slowly convinces you that it's your job to fix what someone else has never taken ownership of. The truth is, you are not responsible for healing someone else's fear of love. That's not your burden to carry, no matter how much potential you see in them, no matter how deeply you care. When someone has avoidant tendencies, they are often operating from old emotional wounds, maybe from childhood, past relationships, or even internal stories that tell them closeness equals pain. Those wounds may not be their fault, but their healing is absolutely their responsibility. Just as yours is yours. The danger in trying to be their emotional savior is that you end up abandoning your own needs in the process. You might start shrinking yourself, staying quiet about what hurts, or pretending you're okay with things you're not all because you don't want to push them away. You become hyper aware of their moods, their patterns, their fears, and start walking on eggshells to keep the peace. Over time, that dynamic creates a silent rule that comfort matters more than your emotional well-being. And that's not love, that's emotional imbalance. When you find yourself constantly explaining, justifying, or overgiving in hopes that they'll finally feel safe enough to open up. You're not building a relationship, you're managing a project. And love is not a project. It's not something you should have to earn by showing how much you can endure. Real love invites both people to grow, to meet each other, and to share the responsibility of emotional safety. If you're the only one doing that work, you're not in a partnership, you're in a performance. Sometimes people confuse empathy with obligation. You can have deep compassion for someone's wounds and still recognize that their behavior is hurting you. You can understand why they struggle with intimacy and still decide that your emotional health comes first. Being a loving person doesn't mean accepting emotional unavailability. It means knowing where your role ends and theirs begins. Avoidants are not broken, and they're not incapable of love. But if they're not actively doing the inner work to understand and change their patterns, no amount of love you give will ever be enough to make them ready. The healing they need can't be forced, and it definitely can't be rushed by your sacrifice. You deserve a relationship where love is shared, effort is mutual, and emotional safety isn't something you constantly have to prove you're worthy of. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you finally started caring about yourself too. Healthy love is not a couthy. It doesn't leave you lying awake at night, replaying conversations, wondering where you stand, or trying to decode someone's behavior like a puzzle. It's not filled with long silences after moments of closeness or emotional coldness after connection. Healthy love is clear. It's consistent. And above all, it's mutual. When you're caught in the orbit of an avoidant person, especially one who hasn't done the work to understand their patterns, it can be easy to mistake emotional turbulence for passion. But love isn't meant to be chaotic. It's meant to be grounding. Avoidant partners often struggle to offer the very things that make a relationship feel emotionally safe: openness, reliability, and shared vulnerability. Instead, you may experience a cycle where every step toward closeness is met with a withdrawal. They may say they care, but their actions don't follow through. Or they may offer affection in one moment and emotional detachment the next. This inconsistency isn't just frustrating, it's destabilizing. It keeps you in a state of uncertainty where you're constantly monitoring their mood, their availability, and their emotional temperature. In this kind of dynamic, love starts to feel like something you have to earn, something you have to chase, something that could be taken away at any moment. You begin to internalize the idea that if you were just more patient, more understanding, more whatever, maybe they'd finally stop running. But that kind of love isn't mutual. It's one-sided. And it teaches you to settle for less than what you truly need. Avoidant partners often struggle to offer the very things that make a relationship feel emotionally safe: openness, reliability, and shared vulnerability. Instead, you may experience a cycle where every step toward closeness is met with a withdrawal. They may say they care, but their actions don't follow through. Or they may offer affection in one moment and emotional detachment the next. This inconsistency isn't just frustrating, it's destabilizing. It keeps you in a state of uncertainty where you're constantly monitoring their mood, their availability, and their emotional temperature. It doesn't make you feel needy for wanting clarity, communication, or consistency. In fact, someone who genuinely cares for you wants to provide those things not because they feel forced to, but because they value your emotional experience as much as their own. In a healthy relationship, there's room for both people to express needs, to show vulnerability, and to build trust without fear of abandonment or suffocation. Consistency is not boring. It's what allows depth to grow. When you know someone is emotionally present and available, you stop wasting energy on anxiety and start focusing on connection. You stop walking on eggshells and start building something real. That's the foundation of true intimacy, when both people are safe enough to show up as they are, not just when it's convenient or easy. The problem with chasing love that's unpredictable is that it conditions you to believe that love must always come with tension. It trains your nervous system to mistake anxiety for affection. Over time, that makes healthy love feel unfamiliar, maybe even dull, because you're so used to emotional highs and lows. But in truth, love that is calm, dependable, and mutual is where real fulfillment lies. It's the kind of love that allows you to grow, not shrink. The kind that supports you, not tests you. You deserve that. And anyone who keeps you questioning your worth with their inconsistency is showing you they're not ready to give IT to you so much for spending your time and energy here today. Whether you're in this pattern now or healing from it, know that your journey toward real love starts with choosing you first. Always. Take care of your heart, respect your peace, and never, ever settle for less than mutual, meaningful, consistent love. Thank you again. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself. Goodbye for now.